Adam Cat's gaze was blank and empty. Little Sarah explained that Adam Cat had been like that since Ma brought Ryan in, unresponsive to calls. She had seen that gaze before in Rust Town and said he was broken inside and not coming back. Ryan said that eventually, when the abyss finished chewing on someone, it spits them back. He planned to turn back time before Adam Cat finished healing. Despite her annoyance, he couldn't let Fortuna stay dead after she sacrificed herself to save her brother. Little Sarah told Ryan to get out of bed, then realized he meant figuratively and asked how he felt. Ryan replied he felt like Christopher Reeves without his legs. Sarah didn't know who that was, which made Ryan say he couldn't stand her. She laughed and caught the joke. Ryan asked Sarah to bring him the wheelchair, his new Plymouth Fury, and said he would let her push him around, but not to talk behind his back. Little Sarah put her book aside and helped Ryan into the wheelchair, asking if he wanted her to find a parking lot. Ryan noted that the courier's body was heavily bandaged, resembling an Egyptian mummy. He joked that it was a start but that Sarah needed training in pun, fu, then asked how long he had been unconscious. Sarah explained that their mother had brought him in the previous night and that the other orphans had bet on his death, most believing he wouldn't survive. Ryan hoped she had bet on him, and her smile suggested she had, saying he was too mean to die and that it would have hurt their mother if he hadn't woken up. Sarah glared at the courier, mentioning their mother had been in tears when she brought Ryan in. Ryan sighed, saying he hadn't planned on it, and asked Sarah to take him to their mother. Sarah pushed the wheelchair toward the hospital's door while Ryan glanced at Adam Cat. Felix had stopped staring at the ceiling and now looked blankly at the undersea abyss outside the habitat. Ryan couldn't blame him, knowing his own parents had signed his death warrant and that he had left behind a sister who died for him. He called Felix's name, but Kitten said he didn't want to talk, his voice emotionless. Sarah pushed the wheelchair through a steel corridor to Len's workshop, where Ryan found his best friend working on her diving armor. She had linked it to the chronoradio and Dynamis brain tech with cables, replacing some parts with copies of Jasmine's design, including the helmet. It seemed Len had repurposed existing equipment rather than creating something new, possibly due to limited resources. Eugene Henry stood atop a server like a sphinx. Len's face showed relief as she exclaimed that Ryan had woken up. Ryan joked if she ever doubted it, and Len admitted she had, her eyes red as if she had wiped away tears repeatedly. She confessed she thought she was too late. Sarah called Ryan an ass and said she would kick his leg if it weren't useless. Ryan suggested she could pinch his arm instead, which she did, and Sarah said he deserved worse before turning her attention to Len, suggesting their mother should rest and offering to bring her warm hot chocolate. Len declined but asked Sarah to leave them alone for a moment. Sarah reluctantly obeyed, and the workshop door closed behind her, leaving Len and Ryan alone. Ryan immediately apologized, but Len looked away, saying she couldn't save the girl who was already drowning in her own blood when she arrived. Ryan assured her the girl had been dead before Len got there and placed a hand on her arm, surprised she didn't pull away. Len pushed his hand away, saying that if she had arrived earlier, she would have died. Ryan asked who had told her where they were, and Len embarrassedly admitted she had hacked his phone after he turned it off and had to search for him on foot. Ryan glanced at the device and then at Eugene Henry, who seemed delighted to see his master, but whose gaze had returned to its natural blue. Len said she thought she had finished the consciousness transfer device but that the cat's energy readings were gone, and Eugene Henry was now a normal cat. Whatever had caused his teleportation jumps had stopped. Ryan understood that a purple world entity had possessed Eugene Henry like the plushie and then left the building. He wondered why it acted that way and what the point was, but resolved he would figure it out in time. He asked Len how things were on the surface. Len winced, clearly indicating things had worsened. Ryan insisted he wanted to know. Len moved to a computer connected to the servers, typed on the keyboard, and showed him the screen. The image came from a sea-based probe, droplets covering the camera lens. Ryan saw a disaster unfolding. New Rome had become a war zone with Augusti genomes and Dynamis forces openly fighting in the streets. Private security helicopters fired on superpowered gangsters who retaliated with fireballs. Flames consumed buildings, including the Il Miglior HQ, bombarded by Vulcan and an armored squadron with missiles. A horde of cybernetically enhanced dinosaurs emerged from the Dynamis tower, engaging attackers in melee and leading the charge. Wyvern was pinned to a building by numerous spears and sharp weapons, while Mars fought a colossal plant monster on the rooftops. Spatial tiers opened around Mars, raining swords and spears upon the vegetal abomination, which retaliated with thick vines and pollen capable of melting steel. As Wyvern freed herself, Mars escaped by materializing shields beneath his feet to jump between rooftops. The strip had been flooded by a tidal wave, with corpses washing up on an artificial shore only to rise again and attack Dynamis facilities. Neptune rampaged across Rust Town, shaping an enormous quantity of water into a colossal squid. A living laser severed one of its tentacles and was soon joined by devilry, but despite their efforts, the liquid elemental reassembled and continued its deadly advance toward the junkyard. The villa atop Mount Augustus had become a fuming crater where two lights dueled to the death, a raging sun and a crimson lightning bolt. Their fight was so fast that even the camera struggled to follow, with thunderbolts and plasma blasts devastating the surrounding district. The camera's panoramic view showed the harbor, where Mortimer, Lanka, and other genomes fired at an unseen form that almost gave Ryan a headache just by appearing on screen. The horrifying eldritch mascot had swirling tentacles for a beard, great dark wings, and webbed hands, a terrifying mix between a squid and a human, worn by a genome unable to control its public domain, powered darkness. The abomination screamed the garbled words, "Cthulhu Fdane." Wardrobe had brought out the apocalypse suit, indicating how dire the situation was. Len admitted the chaos extended all along the coast, not just New Rome but also Sicily and Sardinia. It was the end of the last loop all over again. Destroying the meta had only delayed the inevitable. As long as events continued on their current path, Dynamis, the Carnival, and the Augusti were bound to collide with disastrous results. Ryan's perfect run still seemed far away. He apologized to Len, saying Lab 66 would have to wait for next time. Len confirmed with a frown that it had been like this the previous time. Ryan added that it hadn't been as terrible, but the result was the same, with Adam providing a bigger match. The computer beeped, and Len frowned as she typed on the keyboard, announcing a call from Vulcan. Ryan's heart skipped a beat, sensing a ray of hope amid another bad ending. He told Len to open the channel. The screen shifted from New Rome's apocalyptic ruins to a young woman seated in a chair, though it was not Jasmine. Livia's relieved voice greeted Ryan, expressing her uncertainty since she hadn't seen him. Len scowled, but Ryan responded calmly, stating that if he were dead, the grim present would have ended abruptly. Livia replied with a joyless smile, admitting she had worried that Ryan hadn't told her the whole truth. When she asked about Fortuna, Ryan confirmed she was dead, causing Livia's expression to turn to deep grief. He added that Felix was alive but deeply shaken. Livia fell silent, muttering that she had foreseen it but had hoped otherwise, mentioning her aunt. Ryan explained that Fortuna had died defending her brother from Pluto, and if Fortuna had her way, Livia's late aunt would have killed Felix too. He bluntly stated that Livia's father had given the order, and Pluto carried it out without hesitation. Livia admitted she never wanted this and never thought it would come to such a point. Even Len's expression softened in sympathy despite her clear dislike for Livia, perhaps because she empathized with the mafia princess's situation. Ryan promised to make things right again. Livia finally looked up, asking if there was truly no other way, warning that if nobody but Ryan remembered, the cycle would repeat. Ryan glanced at Len, who shook her head, disagreeing with the idea. Livia noticed their unease and guessed they had a plan to solve the issue. Before Ryan could respond, Len firmly stated they couldn't tell Livia and apologized. Livia regained her composure, focusing on Shorty and asserting that as the underdiver, Len knew everything. Len admitted she was against Ryan telling Livia. Livia acknowledged the distrust, especially after her aunt's actions, and swore she never wanted the tragedy, having done everything she could to stop it. Len remained unimpressed, pointing out that Livia had failed. Livia closed her eyes and bit her lip, a gesture reminiscent of Len's. She explained that her father usually listened to her, but not on this matter, as his hatred of Hargraves ran too deep. Len asked where Livia was and how they could be sure others weren't listening. Livia assured them she was in a safe place outside New Rome with Narcinia, using Vulcan's private line, which was too busy to monitor. Livia revealed she called now precisely because Vulcan was too busy. Len questioned how Livia knew Ryan was there, given her power didn't work on him. Livia explained she couldn't see Ryan directly, but could observe the results of his actions afterward. She had searched for a possibility to talk to Felix, which always involved this line, though she didn't know their location. Ryan cleared his throat, suggesting they end the conversation, but Len insisted on continuing. She warned that Livia was a risk, potentially slipping up about them to Augustus. Livia's sudden outburst admitted she had been wrong to believe her father incapable of such destruction, expressing remorse, grief, and disappointment. She mentioned even Narcinia's betrayal. Len stated Livia shouldn't have trusted Augustus, as it was obvious. Livia bitterly asked if Len distrusted her own parents when they told her things, a remark that visibly struck Len. Livia sighed heavily and offered to help right the wrongs, acknowledging her family's role in causing pain and recognizing the burden on Ryan's shoulders. She expressed gratitude for his sacrifices and insisted she was not an ingrate. Ryan asked if she finally believed him about not being enemies, and Livia nodded, admitting it took some time. She confessed her fear of Ryan, describing him as terrifying due to his knowledge and ability to erase every everything they did at will, noting that none of her powers worked on him, only on her father. Ryan said nothing, turning instead to Len. Despite the temptation to push the issue, he respected Len's reluctance to involve Livia further, recognizing her as a trusted ally through difficult times. Len faced the same dilemma Ryan had confided in Jasmine about, risking openness and betrayal for an uncertain future. Len hesitated before revealing they were attempting to develop a system capable of sending someone's consciousness back in time. Livia's face brightened with hope and eagerness to help. Len explained she had created a memory map to transmit her memories to her past self, but could not send more than one person back yet, and was uncertain if it would work at all. She had modified one of her armors based on Ryan's design, but had no backup. Livia immediately offered her detailed journal to save information and transmit it to Ryan in the next iteration, suggesting she could record the machine's design. Len firmly refused to share the machine's blueprints, still suspicious of Livia. Livia proposed recording the memory map instead. Ryan's heart skipped as he realized she could record that. Len confirmed it was all data, lines of code, and that she could take a snapshot to provide a backup if the transfer failed. She then looked into Ryan's eyes, indicating the risk was less than sharing the blueprints but meant Livia could hold Shorty's memories hostage. Ryan nodded after a moment's thought, deciding to trust Livia, hoping he would not be alone when starting again. Livia bowed deeply, thanking them both and swearing not to disappoint. She asked when they would turn back time. Ryan glanced at Shorty and asked if it would happen as soon as he sent Shorty's consciousness backward. Len confirmed with a nod that his system should cause an early end as the message was sent, a polite way to say it would kill Ryan. Livia asked if it was possible to speak to Felix beforehand. Len offered to link her feed to Felix's TV and send her the memory map as well. Livia thanked him with a sad smile. Len abruptly ended the conversation, the screen turning black. Ryan observed that Livia did not like the situation. She admitted that if it went wrong, she would hold Ryan's life in her hands, making her a hostage who could be used against him. Ryan acknowledged this risk but questioned why Len had told her if he did not trust her. Len explained that she trusted Ryan and had once been afraid of him but realized she was wrong. Ryan expressed gratitude to Len, hoping the world would be just enough for her to remember these words. Len looked away, doubting the world's justice but hoping to be proven wrong. The courier glanced at his cat resting on the server. Ryan remarked that the entity said it was all up to them now, having helped but leaving the rest to their actions. Livia confessed she did not understand. Ryan explained that Henry had to leave and that the rest was up to him. He realized the entity had sent chronoradio messages to encourage him when he considered giving up, caused his early meeting with Livia, and subtly aided Len. It had positioned Fortuna to save Ryan's life and indirectly convinced Livia to assist, setting events in motion so this meeting could occur. Len expressed skepticism that the entity had sent Fortuna to her death intentionally and questioned whether they should trust something that used human life so carelessly. Ryan said he preferred to see the best in people, even interdimensional horrors, without prejudice. Len remained unconvinced, asserting that some people were rotten to the core. Ryan acknowledged meeting Big Fat Adam but maintained his hope to see the best. Ryan reflected on fate, noting that across many loops, events often echoed one another despite interference. This loop would likely end similarly to the previous one, with New Rome burning, Ryan trapped in mechanical armor, and a genius trying to transfer her consciousness through time. He understood that, as one person, he was like a stone thrown into a river, until he mastered a loop enough to maximize his impact and send it off course. The sequence of events tended to reassert itself. The courier fought against the universe and causality, and though it cost him much, he always prevailed, never giving up hope that each loop would be better. Ryan believed that if he succeeded in ferrying more people across time, he could do more than throw pebbles in the river, he could cause a landslide. Len instructed Ryan to activate his power when asked, explaining that the violet flux should build up and reach critical mass before he approached the 10-second mark. She placed the modified armor's helmet on Ryan's face and hooked him to her machinery. Ryan preferred to avoid making a new save point and noted that Len's armor design was cruder and experimental compared to Jasmine's, serving as a fulcrum for his power while her computer ran the computations. He asked how it should proceed. Len said she would send the memory map to her previous self, hoping her current memories would overwrite the old ones, though she could not be certain. Ryan reassured her that it had to work since everything was in place. The workshop door opened, and a bandaged Felix entered, his gaze shifting between Len and Ryan. Ryan saw disbelief in Felix's eyes, followed by quiet acceptance. Felix admitted to having listened long enough. Len asked how long he had been listening, and Felix replied he had been around wardrobe too long. Felix sat on a workbench and complimented Ryan's armor, preferring a cashmere suit instead. Ryan joked about making a cashmere power armor one day. Felix remarked on the craziness of time travel and asked how long Ryan had been at it and how far he could go. Ryan estimated between 500 and 1,000 years and said he could turn the clock back right before his arrival in New Rome. Felix expressed disbelief at nearly a millennium of time travel. Len asked if Livia had told him, but Felix said no, though he had begun to wonder. He acknowledged staying around wardrobe too long. Ryan asked if Felix had made peace with Livia. Felix said not quite but believed she now understood why he left, though it was too little, too late. He asked if Ryan could save his sister, and Ryan confirmed he would. Felix thanked Ryan but asked if he could join the ride. Ryan explained that the machine could only host one brain map and that he would if he could. Len added that they were not even sure the plan would succeed. Felix accepted this, likely numbed by recent events, and asked if they all died once Ryan went back. Ryan reassured him that he would forget, like amnesia. Felix considered that one way to see it. Adam Kitten squinted at Ryan and asked if he had slept with her before. Ryan denied it, surprising her. He joked about having a fuck, marry, kill list to fulfill before his perfect run, naming Jamie, Yuki, the vamp, and PSY. Len rolled her eyes while Adam Cat crossed his arms, unimpressed. Felix admitted he had not understood how much Fortuna loved him, having thought she would choose their parents over him. He now realized he was wrong about her and Livia and believed there was still hope for them. He acknowledged never appreciating his sister and saw that his own parents had signed his death warrant, but Fortuna had chosen him over them and done the right thing when her back was against the wall. Ryan and Len remained silent, understanding Felix needed to express this truth. Felix said that when Ryan turned back time, he would forget and be angry and bitter at Fortuna all over again, making her death meaningless. Ryan reassured him that he would remember, and that Fortuna would make it through his perfect run one way or another. Adam Cat asked Quickie to ensure he understood everything by the time the process was finished, and without Fortuna dying, admitting he doubted he would ever reconcile with Fortuna if Ryan did not intervene. Ryan reassured him that he would find a way, likely by kidnapping both Felix and Fortuna and forcing them into family therapy, even joking about turning one of them into a pickle. Felix smiled genuinely, expressing that he had enjoyed working with Ryan and considered him a good friend. Ryan urged Felix to begin the process quickly before he succumbed to diabetes, lamenting that they never got around to doing a training montage with the panda. Felix agreed, saying it would have been fun. Suddenly, a terrible alarm echoed through the underwater base, interrupting the moment. Ryan turned his head toward Len, whose heavy helmet moved slowly with her skull. Her computer screen displayed the abyss outside alongside the shape of an enormous submarine illuminated by projectors from Len's base, bearing the logo Dynamis. The computer bleeped as someone attempted contact. Len answered cautiously, frowning as a new video feed appeared showing a shining skull staring at the genomes in the workshop. Alphonse Manada's voice held no relief, only curiosity, as he remarked that Adam Cat had survived and wondered where he had run off to. Felix approached Len's computer, questioning the meaning of the Fallout message and noting that Dynamis was supposed to be in New Rome. Alphonse explained that they were relocating their HQ and laboratories out of the city because Augustus had destroyed their previous installations, and they intended to pick up Miss Sabino along the way. Len bristled in dread, frustrating Ryan, who taunted the nuclear cyborg with ET2. Nagasaki? Fallout scoffed, confirming Quicksave's identity inside the armor and ordering them to evacuate the underwater base within 10 minutes to join them aboard the submarine, warning that Vulcan might pursue soon. Len protested, but Ryan and she both denied the request, warning against forcing them to raise a new Berlin Wall. Alphonse's gaze hardened as he told Len they needed her dead or alive and threatened to flood the entire complex and harvest the corpse's genetic material if they did not surrender. Felix's face turned pale, pointing out that children were inside. Ryan reminded Alphonse that they had helped him against the meta and criticized his view of long-term partnerships. Alphonse accused Quicksave of betrayal due to dealings with Livia Augusti, but insisted that joining them was the only way to spare lives. Felix expressed fury and disappointment, believing Alphonse was one of the good ones. Alphonse claimed he opposed Augustus and only acted to prevent Augustus and his twisted kind from winning. Felix angrily asked how Alphonse was any different, citing Hargrave's testimony about Augustus murdering a peaceful community to capture Felix's sister Narcinia, and accused Alphonse of threatening children's lives to control a genius. Alphonse argued that he acted to save human lives, contrasting that with Augustus' countless murders and warning of more deaths if Augustus remained unchecked. He said ending the war quickly would save lives, and if Len joined them, they would be closer to victory. Len asked why she was targeted and what she had done, questioning if it was about the factory. Alphonse replied gruffly that there was no point explaining now, but revealed she was key to refining elixir processing for mass production, removing it as a tool of oppression. Ryan realized Alphonse wanted to make everyone a genius genome, explaining that warlords like Augustus maintained power by concentrating genomes in their organizations, but democratizing elixirs would break these dictatorships. Len was the key to this vision. Ryan noted Alphonse's hypocrisy about keeping bloodstream in his labs, but Alphonse ignored the question and demanded they choose dead or alive. Len looked to Ryan and answered swiftly that it was better to be dead than part of the corporation, abruptly cutting off communication. Alphonse responded with a bombardment that shook the underwater complex as projectiles struck the habitat. Len ordered Ryan to act, and Ryan immediately froze time, violet flux particles floating out of his suit. As the particles multiplied, Ryan took one last look at the scene, water breaking through the ceiling from Dynamis torpedoes, Len staring at her screen with dread and hope, and Felix waiting quietly for the end. Though it was not the ending Ryan had hoped for, he swore it would not happen again. Violet particles engulfed the world, ending the loop. It was May 8, 2020 in New Rome, not for the first time nor the last. Ryan parked his car near the city instead of driving in, waiting silently as music played from the chronoradio instead of a message from an erased timeline. Like Eugene, Henry, whatever force had influenced the device during the previous loop had ceased. Dread overtook Ryan's body as he waited desperately for a sign from Len, any sign that she had survived and that Jasmine's loss and all the sacrifices had meant something. Though he had never believed in any god, he was tempted to pray. The chronoradio's music stopped abruptly, and Len's voice came through, calling him Riri. Ryan's heart skipped a beat as relief washed over him. He asked if she remembered, and after a brief silence, Len confirmed she did. It had worked. After so many trials, false starts, loneliness, and pain, Ryan's patience had finally paid off. He had spent countless loops researching his power and gathering the necessary knowledge and tools, with contributions from Len, Jasmine, and others. This time was different. Things had changed irrevocably. Len coughed and told Ryan to go to the orphanage immediately. When Ryan expressed concern about Ghoul, Len interrupted, her cough worsening, insisting there was little time and that the procedure had a problem. She pleaded for his help, warning that without it, everything would be for nothing. Ryan demanded to know what Len meant by shorty, but she cut the communication without answering. Frustrated, he slammed the accelerator and sped toward Rust Town, suppressing his conscience about letting Ghoul escape for now because Len needed his help. As he drove north, Ryan muttered in disbelief that Len's idea had worked. Despite possible health costs or side effects, it had succeeded. Overjoyed, he paid the private security to let him pass through Rust Town's border, confident that the consciousness transfer could be perfected. Approaching the orphanage, Ryan's phone rang from an unknown number he recognized as Livia's, but he did not answer immediately. Outside the orphanage doors, Len waited alone, dressed in her jumpsuit and carrying her water rifle, her face pale and eyes sullen, with blood dripping from her nose. Ryan hurriedly parked his Plymouth Fury and rushed to her side, asking if she was all right. Len looked at him silently, clearly unwell, and as he reassured her, she suddenly fired her weapon at him. Ryan froze, unable to believe Shorty would attack him, and the shot hit him. A sphere of water instantly formed around Ryan, absorbing him and restraining his body with intense pressure as liquid broke into his mask. Shocked, he realized Len's eyes had turned cold and soulless, and something had gone terribly wrong. Though Len had returned through time, someone else had come with her. Ryan reflected on the recurring patterns of fate he had witnessed across many loops. Despite his interference, events often echoed previous cycles, with New Rome burning, himself trapped in mechanical armor, and a genius attempting consciousness transfer through time. He understood that until he mastered the loop to alter its course, the sequence of events would reassert itself. Yet, he always prevailed, improving with each iteration, hoping to one day disrupt the flow significantly. Len placed the modified armor's helmet on Ryan and connected him to her machinery, instructing him to activate his power when asked. She explained that the violet flux should build and reach critical mass before the 10-second mark. Ryan noted the armor was cruder and experimental compared to Jasmine's, serving only as a fulcrum while Len's computer handled computations. Len prepared to send her current memories back to her previous self to overwrite them, though she expressed uncertainty. Ryan affirmed that everything was in place for success, but Len could only hope it would work. Their conversation was interrupted when a bandaged Felix entered the workshop, his gaze shifting between Len and Ryan with disbelief and quiet acceptance. Len asked how long he had been listening, and Felix admitted it had been long enough. He sat on a workbench, commenting on Ryan's armor and joking about preferring a cashmere suit. Felix expressed amazement at Ryan's time travel abilities, asking how long he had been at it and how far he could go. Ryan estimated his age between 500 and 1,000 years and said he could turn the clock back to just before his arrival in New Rome. Felix shook his head in disbelief at the length of time. Len asked if Livia had told Felix about Ryan's secret, but he said no, though he had suspected it. Felix Felix acknowledged understanding why he had left, noting that a war had shaken Livia's faith in her father, but it was too little, too late. When Ryan asked if Felix had made peace with Livia, Felix replied that he thought she now understood his reasons. Felix asked if Ryan could save his sister, and Ryan promised he would. Felix requested to join the mission, but Ryan explained the machine could only host one brain map. Len added uncertainty about whether she could make it through the procedure at all. Felix accepted the situation with a resigned sigh, though concern remained on his face. Ryan reassured him that after returning, he would forget everything like amnesia. Felix considered the concept and then asked Ryan if he had ever been with Adam Kitten. Ryan denied it, explaining he had a fuck, marry, kill list to fulfill before his perfect run, naming Jamie, Yuki, the vamp, and Pieswagaswak. Len rolled her eyes, and Felix crossed his arms, expressing surprise but remaining silent to process the information. Felix admitted he had misunderstood how much Fortuna loved him, believing she would choose their parents over him, but he was wrong about her and Livia. He saw hope for them now and regretted not appreciating his sister. He acknowledged that while their parents had signed his death warrant, Fortuna had chosen him over them and done the right thing when pressured. Ryan and Len remained silent, understanding Felix needed to express his truth. Felix concluded that when Ryan turned back time, he would forget this realization and become angry and bitter at Fortuna again, rendering her death meaningless. Ryan reassured Felix that he would remember, despite his previous low opinion of Lucky Girl improving greatly after witnessing her sacrifice. He vowed she would survive his perfect run one way or another. Felix, catching his breath, asked Ryan to ensure he understood that by the time Ryan finished, Fortuna would not die, as he doubted he would ever reconcile with her if Ryan did not intervene. Ryan promised to find a way, likely by kidnapping both Felix and Fortuna for family therapy, even if it meant turning one into a pickle. Felix smiled genuinely, expressing that he had enjoyed working with Ryan and considered him a good friend. Ryan teased Felix to start the process before he died of diabetes, lamenting that they had never done a training montage with the panda. Felix agreed it would have been fun. Suddenly, a terrible alarm echoed through the underwater base, interrupting the moment. Ryan turned toward Len as her heavy helmet shifted with her skull. On her computer screen, an image of the abyss and an enormous submarine appeared, illuminated by projectors from Len's base, bearing the logo Dynamis. The computer bleeped as someone attempted contact. Len answered cautiously, frowning as a new video feed displayed a ghoulish, shining skull, Alphonse Manata, looking at the genomes in the workshop. Alphonse spoke without relief, expressing curiosity about Adam Cat's survival and questioning where he had gone. Felix approached Len's computer, asking about the situation and noting that Alphonse was supposed to be in New Rome. Alphonse explained they were relocating their headquarters and laboratories out of the city after Augustus destroyed their previous installations and intended to pick up Miss Sabino along the way. Len bristled with dread, frustrating Ryan, who taunted the nuclear cyborg with ET2, Nagasaki. Alphonse scoffed, recognizing Ryan inside the armor and ordering them to evacuate the underwater base within 10 minutes to join the submarine, warning that Vulcan might pursue soon. Len protested, but Ryan and Len denied the request, warning against forcing them to raise a new Berlin Wall. Alphonse's gaze hardened as he declared they needed Len dead or alive, threatening to flood the entire complex and harvest genetic material if they did not surrender. Felix's face paled, reminding them there were children inside. Ryan pointed out their previous assistance against the Meta, accusing Alphonse of a poor view of partnerships. Alphonse accused Ryan of betrayal through dealings with Livia Augusti and insisted that joining them was the only way to spare lives. Felix expressed fury and disappointment, calling Alphonse one of the good ones, but Alphonse claimed he acted to prevent Augustus from ruling Europe and to stop his twisted kind from winning. Felix snarled, accusing Alphonse of hypocrisy after hearing Hargrave's account of Augustus murdering a peaceful community to capture Felix's sister Narcinia and now threatening children to control a genius. Alphonse countered that he acted to save human lives and questioned if they could fathom how many people Augustus had killed and would kill now that he was unrestrained. He argued that ending the war quickly would save more lives and that having Len with them would bring them closer to victory. Len asked why she was targeted and what she had done, questioning if it related to the factory. Alphonse replied gruffly that explaining now was pointless but revealed that Len was key to refining their elixir processing for mass production, so it would no longer be a tool of oppression by the few. Ryan realized Alphonse wanted to make everyone a genome. Alphonse confirmed that Augustus and similar warlords maintained power by concentrating genomes in their organizations, but democratizing elixirs would break these dictatorships, with Sabino as the key to this dream. Ryan noted Alphonse was a red in more ways than one and lamented that if he did not want to harm her, Fallout and Shorty might have gotten along well. Ryan bluntly asked if Alphonse kept bloodstream in his labs, causing Len to bristle. Fallout ignored further questions and demanded a choice, dead or alive. Len looked to Ryan and answered swiftly that she would rather be dead than become a corporate pawn, then abruptly cut off the communication. Alphonse responded with a bombardment that shook the entire undersea complex as projectiles struck the habitat. Len ordered Ryan to act, and Ryan immediately froze time, violet flux particles emanating from his suit. As the particles multiplied, he took a final moment to observe the scene, water breaking through the ceiling from Dynamis torpedoes, Len's dread and hope as she watched her screen, and Felix waiting quietly for the end. Ryan vowed this was not the ending he wanted, and that it would not happen again. The violet particles engulfed the world, ending the loop. It was May 8, 2020, in New Rome, not the first time nor the last. Ryan felt his legs again. Instead of driving into the city, he parked nearby and waited. Music played from the chronoradio instead of a message from an erased timeline. Like Eugene, Henry, whatever force had influenced the device during the previous loop had ceased. It was all up to Ryan now. He remained silent and motionless, dread overtaking him as he desperately awaited a sign from Len, any sign that she had survived, that Jasmine's loss and all sacrifices had meant something. Though he never believed in any god, he was tempted to pray. The music stopped abruptly, and Len's voice came through. Riri. Ryan's heart skipped a beat, relief flooding him as he asked if she remembered. After a brief silence, she confirmed she did. It worked. After countless loops, research, and gathering tools with contributions from Len, Jasmine, and others, the quest had reached its final stage. This time was different. Things had changed irrevocably. Len coughed and warned Ryan urgently to go to the orphanage immediately. Ryan blinked, concern overtaking his relief as he began to protest that Ghoul would kill. Len interrupted Ryan urgently, her cough worsening as she insisted he come quickly. She explained there was little time and a problem with the procedure, adding that she was not feeling right and needed his help immediately, or everything would be for nothing. When Ryan asked what she meant, the communication abruptly cut off. He shouted her name, but there was no response. Ryan slammed the accelerator and drove straight to Rust Town, suppressing his frustration about letting Ghoul get away with murder. Len needed him, and she remembered. As he drove north, he muttered that it had worked. Len's idea had worked, despite potential side effects. Overjoyed and hopeful, he paid the private security to let him pass through the Rust Town border. Approaching the orphanage, Ryan's phone rang from an unrecognized number, Livia. He did not answer immediately. Outside the orphanage doors, Len waited alone, wearing her jumpsuit and carrying her water rifle, her face pale and eyes sullen, blood dripping from her nose. Ryan parked his Plymouth Fury hastily and rushed to her side, asking if she was all right. Len looked at him silently, clearly sick. As Ryan reassured her, she suddenly shot him. Frozen in shock, Ryan could not imagine Len attacking him and was caught off guard. A sphere of water formed around Ryan, absorbing him instantly. Intense pressure restrained his body as liquid seeped into his mask. Len observed him coldly from the other side of the watery prison, and Ryan realized something had gone terribly wrong. Len had come back through time, but someone else had hitched a ride. For a moment, none of the psychos moved. They stared at the surreal scene outside the room, an adorable rabbit plushie standing amid blood and corpses. Ryan had never told Len much about this unholy abomination, and the psychos did not expect it to awaken. The seal had been broken, and hell was unleashed. The plushie noticed the black elixir in Big Fat Adam's hands and looked at it curiously. It playfully glanced at Ryan, as if warning him not to use it. Then the plushie spotted little Sarah bound on the table, its ears perking up as it uttered, "Child detected." Realizing the threat, Psyshock launched wire tentacles at the plushie, while Ghoul unleashed an ice shard volley. The possessed toy leapt with unnatural agility, its eyes turning red, and fired a laser blast that vaporized Psyshock's brain. It bounced off walls to dodge attacks,